You are listening to Passing Shots with Pete Ziebron on the Pro 10 Radio Network, a production of Pro 10 Global Sports. Enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Today is June 3rd, 2014. Pete Ziebron alongside professional tennis writer, journalist, and author Barry Buss out in L.A., California. Welcome to the show tonight, Barry.
Hey, Peter. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. We are deep in the second week of Roland Garros. We've had a couple of quarterfinals on both the men's and women's side played today. We're going to start off with the women, and Barry, Genie Bouchard, appearing in only her fifth major, gets her second consecutive semifinal. Obviously, she got to the semis in Melbourne earlier this year, and a very impressive win today against Suarez Navarro, getting through some difficult times, was down 2-5 in the first set, actually saved a set point. Lost her way a little bit in the second round, steadied her game, and got through. Your thoughts on Genie Bouchard, who will actually have a very interesting semi with Maria Sharapova. We'll talk about Maria in a little bit, but your thoughts on Genie?
Well, it's certainly nice to see a fresh face, a young face. So obviously from a country doesn't have a very long tennis tradition in Canada. This tour needed something like this badly, for someone who's got a lot of, seems to have a lot of charisma and just really seems to be having a good time out there. And he's got some game, I mean, she's obviously a very attractive girl too, which doesn't hurt, the fan interest at all. I'm not completely sold on her. She's still relatively new. It's great. This is a second consecutive slam semifinal, but what I look at in these things is who is she beating, and she's really not beating a lot of top flight players, and she looked very scratchy today out there to me. That she very easily could have lost this match. And even in Australia, I think she beat Ivanovic, but beyond that, I don't think there were any real, top flight marquee wins. But at that point, she's at the point in her game, she's a little one-dimensional. She just takes it early and she's able to crack it. And when she's hot, and she's going to take the racket out of your hand. And when she gets off track, it can be, it can look like that first set and most of the third set today against Suarez Navarro. So tough call, but hey, she's in the semis, and she's right there. Anything can happen from here.
Yeah, sort of a letdown in her game following the success in Melbourne. Actually, dipped quite a bit, quite a few early exits in several of the tournaments. Then did play last week in Nuremberg, Germany, won that tournament. Always a little bit of a danger, perhaps, playing the week before a tournament. But, several of the players who won the titles over the weekend, as we talked about last show, Bouchard still alive. Golbis, we'll talk about him, obviously alive and well. Cole Schreiber did very well, taking Murray very deep, 12-10 in the fifth, and in his match. But, Genie seems to come alive, at least in 2014 in the majors. And she's going to play Maria Sharapova, who's seeking her fifth major overall, her second Roland Garros. And, Barry, I want to talk a little bit about her match, not necessarily today against Muguruza. We'll touch on that a bit. But, down a set and a break against Sam Stosur last round over the weekend, and then actually steamrolled 9 consecutive games to end the match. Stosur sent, a 6-love bagel set in the third. Stosur saying, I really didn't play that badly. I'm not really sure what happened. Maria literally got the keys to the steamroller and went to work. Want to get your take on that Sharapova-Stosur match before we talk about the match today.
Yeah, I actually happened to catch quite a bit of that. It just seems to be vintage. This is just classic, current, modern form for Maria, where she, somehow she just can't quite get out of the gate cleanly. I'm not sure if it's just a little bit of nerves or just seems to really have a hard time getting herself settled into these matches, but to her credit, she's been considered one of the greatest competitors in women's tennis history, and, she can find herself down a set and a break, and that's almost when, she starts playing. And once again, she fights, and she just seems to find a way. And, I think what's interesting on this, especially in the French, it's so difficult to close these matches out. You've got to play, you've got to hit a lot of balls, and, you're just not going to get a lot of easy, cheap points at these, at the crunch time in these matches. And she just makes you work. And Stosur looked great for a set and a half, and then all of a sudden the level came down. Maria had, got a couple looks, and next thing you know, they're in the third set. Not unlike what happened this morning, with Muguruza. Same thing, she was in all kinds of trouble there. And so as for her prospects going forward, it'd be nice for her if she could put a couple sets in a row together. That would sure put her cheering base could breathe a little bit easier. She's playing with fire. It gets tougher now. Everyone's a little bit more ready. She has not played a complete match, in one of these big matches in a while now. So I'm curious how she'll respond here as to kind of the prohibitive favorite going into the semis.
Yeah, obviously consummate pro, 31 titles to her name, including all four of the majors. And I'm just wondering, since Serena Williams did exit the tournament, and so many people, Maria herself has said and proclaimed herself to be the favorite, do you think that has anything to do with the slow starts that she is? Obviously Stosur, a very solid player on clay, has reached a final and two other semis. Muguruza today, as you mentioned, Sharapova managed only one game in the first set, and took her a while to figure that out. And do you think being literally the odds-on favorite has anything to do with these slow starts?
What it seems to me more than anything else is when there's been a few early, anytime one of these events occur where there's some early upsets, where you get Li Na going on, and so obviously Serena was a shocking early loss like that, it just seems like the rest of the field comes alive, and they see their peers, knock some of these players out that always, somewhat seemed invincible and prohibitive favorites in these tournaments. It just gives everyone a little bit of life that maybe I can too, and it just seems that certainly with Stosur, who was playing superbly, right out of the gate, and Muguruza, not just with Serena, but today also with Maria, just, they're just swinging free, and they're out there, they're playing like they have nothing to lose until they have something to lose, until they get really close to winning, and, and then they're tightening up a little bit. But it just seems that, it's not so much, Maria seems to be kind of holding her form more or less throughout the matches, and just kind of waiting for everyone else to come back to the mean a little bit and give her, give her some looks there. But, and the other thing, too, I think there's always a contrast in styles with Maria, where, if she's playing another girl who's taking the ball early and ripping it like Muguruza was, and Bouchard will also, it's very hard for both of these players to play well at the same time. Neither of them defend great. They're not great movers, and, they're big first strike hitters. And, whoever's getting off first, it's really difficult for the other player to play good tennis. So it can look very lopsided, and on the upside of that, it's very hard for somebody to sustain that level of intensity and dominance for two straight sets. So there will be opportunities later in the match to, when they settle down on their form a little bit. But yeah, it's full credit to her. She's a phenomenal competitor. She hasn't blinked, and she's hung in there a couple times, when she looked like she was in a lot of trouble.
Good points, solid points. Yep, and her opponent today, Muguruza, obviously got off to a 6-1 start in the first set over Sharapova. Everybody's thinking, wow, she could keep this up. Could be the first player on the WTA tour to beat both Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova in a major. And want to get your thoughts on Muguruza. In fact, just absolutely drummed Serena Williams 2-2. That result, the scoreline was very surprising, and I'm really not into the drama at all in tennis. But when Serena congratulated Muguruza at the net and said, it later came out, somebody asked what did Serena say, and she said, well, you have a chance to win. You keep playing like that, you have a chance to win the tournament. And Muguruza said something back, and Serena said, you better. I almost took that as Serena Williams not necessarily saying you can go out and do it. Just get to the semis and at least take Sharapova out of the picture. Maybe I'm reading into that, but that could have been Serena Williams. That was the instant that popped into my head. But all credit to Garbina Muguruza reaching quarterfinals, only her sixth major, and she also made the fourth round this year, as you mentioned. Free swinging, really looked great against Serena. We saw a lot of that early in the match today, and your thoughts on what we can expect from Gabrina Muguruza going forward.
Well, that's, listen, she's had a wonderful first half of the season here. I guess my understanding is she had a pretty tough injury about a year ago and was pretty much laid up in the hospital with a bad ankle. She fits into that same kind of mold for me that these obviously she's a tall girl, hits the cover off the ball off both wings, just doesn't seem to have a lot of variety. Doesn't seem to have a lot of kind of feel or dexterity, and her movement is always a concern. When the girls get up around 6 feet like that, they just, there's only a few Serenas and Venuses who can cover the court like they do. So there's a part of me that feels, listen, when she's hitting it clean like she has been, obviously in Australia and here, she's going to be, she can take the racket out of your hand and be really, really, real dominant force. But at the same time, I think when her level comes off a little bit, certainly like it did in the third set today, they start spraying, and there's just not enough margin in her game for me to really have, to be long on her in the sense of, a potential, slam champion down the road. I just think, once the girls with a little bit more savvy in the game will break her down. And, and the confidence factor, she's got to be absolutely firing on all cylinders to sustain that level of play. But she's young and she can hit it, and there's a history of girls who are young and can hit it to do really well on the tour. So we'll see how it shakes out for her.
Very good points. Before we get to the second quarter of the women's draw, Barry, we're going to wrap up what we think. We've got a very intriguing semifinal that will be played next couple days. Maria Sharapova and Jeannie Bouchard. Sharapova is struggling to find her form early in matches, but has gotten through. Jeannie Bouchard, as you mentioned, is there also. Didn't necessarily have solid wins on her way to the semis, but your prediction, your call for the Maria Sharapova, Jeannie Bouchard semi.
Well, I think it's almost like a can't-lose situation for tennis and the tennis fans. Obviously, Maria, late in the draw like this, and she's such a marquee name. And if Bouchard steps up and has one of those performances where she just comes out swinging and puts on a performance, she can take this. She can run right through this. I mean, the current form for both of them, neither of them are playing complete matches right now. They're having bad stretches. In matches, and they're both showing a lot of toughness. So a lot of it is going to come down to it's going to be close. It's going to be back and forth. I don't think both players can play well at the same time. And I'd be leaning towards Maria. And in a close match, it's really hard to bet against her. Bouchard doesn't quite have the experience yet, but there's no better place to get it than this one.
Indeed, yep, very good point. Anything can happen in the French, and as you mentioned, tough for anybody to be closing out matches at this point in time, and very cold, heavy conditions this year in Paris. You got
to hit so many balls. Yeah, I mean, there's just no quick points. You got to really grind, and you got to just be so relaxed out there, and it's just so difficult to do under the pressure, that they're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yep, and we're going to move to the second quarter, still staying on the top half of the draw, Barry, and a couple of matches that will be played tomorrow. Simona Halep, the number 4 seed, taking on a two-time major champion, and actually my dark horse coming into the French, Svetlana Kuznetsova, who has played some very good tennis in Paris this year, has gotten through some long matches, and even though she was my dark horse, I'm going to go with Halep. I think, as we talked about last week when we both had Sharapova Halep in the final, I'm sticking with Halep to get through. But really pleased with how Svetlana Kuznetsova has played at Roland Garros this year, and want to get your take on this match tomorrow.
Yeah, compelling matchup. They played a couple weeks ago in Stuttgart, and Kuznetsova got the best of Halep in straight sets. So, historically, when Kuznetsova goes deep into majors, then she's got everything kind of working. She's healthy. She's been prone to having, some serious up and downs in her emotional makeup in these tournaments, and certainly battles her nerves quite a bit. But right now, she won a couple tough matches. The match with Kvitova was a nail biter. She's late in the tournament. Generally, she does well. So she is. Halep is kind of the it girl now and kind of the popular pick. I still I think she has the cleanest form right now. She seems to be hitting the ball the best off both wings. I think Kuznetsov's forehand can get real shaky. Halep just looks so fundamentally sound to me right now. I think she would really have to have an off day, I think, to make this more of a match. So I'm going to go with Halep. I think fairly routine. I think straight sets and kind of with kind of almost sending a message, I think, to the field that she's championship bound.
Yeah, Simona is feeling it, and prime opportunity for her to go deep, possibly even win it as well. I like your statement of sending a message to the field. That's certainly quite an opportunity to do so tomorrow morning. The other match concurrently played out of the gate. This one is going to be Andrea Petkovic and Sarah Errani. Obviously, Errani has had very good success at Roland Garros the last few years, and nice to see Petkovic back. A nice spirit out there on the court who almost gave up playing tennis due to some nagging injuries and loss of form. But she really hasn't beaten anybody per se. I think the highest ranked player is maybe 70 or so. But yet, here she is in her quarterfinal match against. Yeah. So your thoughts on Petkovic and Errani?
Yeah, this is one of those tricky ones. Fortunately, you got a nice contrast in styles here. I mean, Errani is kind of your classic clay courter here that's just going to make you work. Petkovic is going to kind of bring her hardcore game to the clay court. She's a tall girl. She doesn't mind the high ball. She can take it early and hit it flat, and if she's finding her spots and it's playing relaxed, she can give Errani a lot of trouble. Errani pretty routine to her a couple of weeks ago on the red clay in Madrid. I assume, and she knows how to win on this stuff. She's very comfortable here. As you mentioned before, Petkovic is kind of a pretty scratchy route to the quarters here so far. She's winning some close matches. So I like Errani. I say one close set, probably one convincing set. I just think she's dialed in right now to fight, and she looks very, very strong out there right now.
Yeah, Petkovic actually has a clay court victory this year. Unfortunately for her, it was on the green clay of Charleston. So obviously far different scenario playing the red clay in Europe. And both of the matches today, Barry, went the distance, 3 sets. Interesting in the round before, in the fourth round of the 8 matches played, 6 of them were straight sets. Only 2 went the distance. And we're going to go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just always found it kind of interesting. Those fourth-round matchups are always fascinating because you got a lot of people, players, men and women, who have advanced pretty far in tournaments and maybe haven't gone that far in majors before. And that's a big paycheck for these guys, too. Everyone's looking at around $75,000, $80,000 for that, and a lot of people are pretty satisfied with their tournament by that point, and they're pretty content to cash their check and move on. So sometimes the fight isn't always there in those fourth-round matchups.
Yeah, good, very, very good point. And we're going to come up on a break here now, Barry, and when we come back, we'll talk about the ATP action at Roland Garros. Some pretty interesting results, and we'll talk all about them when we come back right after this.
Do you know how fast you were going, son?
Call me Ed.
Do you know how fast you were going, Ed?
You mean exactly?
Yes, exactly.
No, not exactly. How fast?
Fast.
Faster?
You were going very fast.
Fast is my job, officer.
Fast is your job?
Yes, sir.
What kind of job?
I deliver, sir.
What do you deliver?
The world's greatest gourmet sandwiches.
I thought Jimmy John's had the world's greatest gourmet sandwiches.
Jimmy John's does have the world's greatest gourmet sandwiches.
So you deliver for Jimmy John's?
I deliver for Jimmy John's.
So do you always deliver fast?
I always deliver fast.
How fast?
I deliver something so fast you freak.
It's not smart to freak a cop, son.
You didn't order Jimmy John's sub, sir.
So if I did order a Jimmy John's sub, when would I get it?
Now.
What if I don't want it now?
Then call later.
Or I could pick it up myself.
Or you can pick it up yourself.
Because I'm pretty fast, too.
I'm sure you are, sir.
Very fast.
I believe you, sir.
Faster than you.
No way, sir.
Way faster.
In your dreams.
You dissing me, son?
No, sir, I'm polite.
Fast and polite?
Very polite and very, very fast.
Is that a challenge, son?
No, sir, it's a fact.
Let's burn rubber, kid.
It wouldn't be fair.
Why not?
You've got a fully blown V8 Camaro with slicks and headers.
So?
I've got a 10-speed bike.
I'll let you off with a warning.
They try and make it seem like they want to protect kids from smoking. But in reality, they've been targeting children for decades. They used to make and sponsor cartoons to market cigarettes. But despite these shows being popular among children, they claimed that these cartoons were for an adult audience. Then, they paid movies to feature their brands. Some of your favorite superhero movies have characters that the industry actually paid to smoke on screen. One industry exec said that,
"We must continue to exploit new opportunities to get cigarettes on screen and into the hands of smokers."
And now they carefully place posters and other ads at convenience stores and push new products that look and taste just like candy, Who eats candy and sees ads that are 3 feet off the ground? Come on. So you want to know why I'm tobacco-free? Because I don't want their marketing to reach my little sister. That's why. Learn more at whydoyouthink.com. That's the letter Y, doyouthink.com.
To celebrate the not normal Mini Cooper, we hired an expert to tell you about Mini telepathically.
Greetings. Relax and listen to my mind. The Mini Cooper hardtop comes with 37 mpg and go-kart handling.
Wait, that's not telepathy.
Listen again. The bigger four-door Mini Countryman has seating for 5.
Okay, you're just whispering.
You're still paying me for this.
Come see the 37 mpg Mini Cooper hardtop and the bigger Mini Countryman today. Visit miniusa.com/info for MPG details.
Hi, this is Johan Quick, and you're listening to the Pro 10 Radio Network.
And welcome back to Passing Shots. Pete Ziebron with tennis journalist and author Barry Buss. We've gotten talking about the women at Roland Garros this year, and now it's time to talk about the ATP action. And Barry, the first thing that probably jumps out is the success of Ernest Gulbis, who finds himself in the semifinals after taking care of Roger Federer in the 4th round in a very impressive result today against Tomas Berdych in the quarters. Let's talk first about the Gulbis-Federer match. Federer, obviously a very scratchy first set in that, lots of breaks and not necessarily a good start for Fed. He did steady his game, got the job done in the tiebreak, and then had some set points in the second set, including the overhead smash that he hit right back to Gulbis. And, you know, my opinion, if that's a 2-sets-to-love advantage for Roger, probably just about curtains for Gulbis, but to his credit, he was able to stick around, hang around, and got the job done against Roger. I want to see how you saw that match over the weekend.
Yeah, there was some really, really good tennis going on there. I mean, the thing I look at there, you know, there's just two things I look at. First of all, and I think what's happened with Federer's decline in form the last couple of years is a lot of these guys who he's basically been, you know, pounding into the pavement for the last decade here. Now they all have a chance to get a win against them. You saw it with Robredo last year, and some of these guys who are 0-13, 0-14. You know, they're you know, these guys they're competitors, and this is a big opportunity for them. So they're extra motivated to play him. But as for him, you know, I think you can almost go back to 2008 in Australia. He just somehow he's lost his dominance, and there's just a certain amount of doubt in him when he's playing these longer matches now, that he just doesn't look like he believes he's going to win these. And you know, case in point, the body language after that overhead in the second set on the set point there, you could just look in his eyes and say, oh God, here we go again. You know, he's lost so many matches from these very winnable positions, and you know, I think a tougher, more confident Federer just kind of shakes it off and say, okay, bad luck, bad, you know, my bad, great shot on his part, shake it off and stay focused. And it just looks like that stuff just steamrolls, body language gets negative, and he just doesn't seem to be able to make any adjustments or overcome. He's got doubt right now in himself, and that's just a really difficult thing to overcome at that level of play.
Yeah, I want to ask about Fed. Obviously, he had a very good start to the year. Took out Djokovic in Dubai. You know, got all the way to the final in Monte Carlo. Beat sort of an ailing Djokovic in the semis, and actually won the first set against Stan before he lost that. And you know, pretty good preparation. He hadn't played Monte Carlo in a few years. Got all the way to the final. Probably should have won that. But you know, the twins were born. Second set of twins. He did not play Madrid. Rome, very, very tricky conditions. You know, credit to Shardy for getting the job done. Federer obviously didn't have the ideal preparation coming into Roland Garros. I think that has something to do with that. But, you know, in addition to watching the Federer-Gulbis match, Barry, I was listening to some audio coverage of Radio Roland Garros, and the announcers, who are very good, were saying, you know, Federer is just not being aggressive when he needs to be, and the analysis was spot on. You had mentioned that just a little while ago. You know, some winnable shots, some winnable points. The Federer of old puts that away, no problem. And you know, obviously, the last few years that's not happening. So Before we continue to talk about Gulbis and his success, the one plus for Roger, I suppose, is he's going to get an extra week of practice on the grass. Heading over and getting ready for Halle and then Wimbledon. Obviously, he's gone deep in Roland Garros for forever, and now with this extra period of time, that might very well help him out on the grass. Your thought on that, really quickly?
Yeah, it's the doubt thing. Just the point you made a second ago, just on the lack of aggression at the right time. He just doesn't believe what he used to do on instinct and second nature. He doesn't have that anymore. He just doesn't believe in himself to react. He just doesn't look as reactive as he used to. And a little hesitation, these guys can get him on his heels, and then they're just as good as he is, and invariably his matches get too close, and he can't pull them all out. He used to dominate guys like that and just really smother them, and it's just not happening anymore.
Yep, good points. And let's continue talking about Gulbis. Obviously, he stayed the course, got the job done against Roger, and what really surprised me was the line score today against Berdych. He won 3-2 and 4, and Berdych lost lost a very tight match against Wawrinka in the Australian Open, and had said, wow, Stan is showing the rest of us how to get it done. And for a while there, I think Berdych won a 500-level tournament between Australia and Roland Garros, was playing with a lot of confidence. And then, to see, granted, Gulbis has a different form right now, but for Berdych to lose 3-2 and 4 against Ernestus Gulbis, even an in-form Gulbis, that line score really, really surprised me. And credit to Gulbis. I mean, he's feeling it, and he's getting it done. He proclaimed earlier this year, I want to be the number one player in the world. That surprised quite a few people. But, hey, he's a couple more wins, and he's taking giant strides to maybe somehow get there at some point.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. Berdych is one of these poor guys. He just can't get any respect at this level. I mean, he's a two-time Slam finalist. He's been in the top 10 in the world for, probably 6-7 years straight now or so. And, he's in the quarters here, and, he's an afterthought. And no one was even giving him, a chance to go further here. It just looked like Gulbis hit so many lines today. He got every break. He was winning all the scratchy points. And once again, you get a guy like Berdych, the tall, one-dimensional kind of guys like that who just don't move that great on the dirt. You get some guys who have a little bit of, panache in their game, who can feel the ball around the court, and they're just going to give him trouble. He can take the racket out of your hands on the faster surfaces, but on the slower courts like this, it just doesn't, his movement really becomes a hindrance, and that's the weakest aspect on both players' games out there. As for Gulbis, he is a breath of fresh air. It's exactly another thing the tour really needed is a little bit of personality, late in these majors. It's a tall order. You're going to beat Federer, Berdych, Djokovic, and Nadal to win a major. That's I don't know if there's a player in the history of the sport who could do that, let alone Ernest. But he's halfway home. Unfortunately, it just doesn't get any easier coming in. But that's why these majors are tough to win. He's playing extremely well. He's serving brilliantly. I think that's not really being brought up enough. I mean, his backhand's from the gods, but the guy he's absolutely tomahawking first serves out there, in the mid-130s almost, routinely. So he's tough to break, and he's got a lot of game. He's confident. So he's going to be trouble for Djokovic in the semis, no question about it.
Yeah, indeed, and the other match that was played today was Novak Djokovic playing Milos Raonic, and interestingly enough, Milos has been on tour for a while, and who would have thought that at Roland Garros of all places, he's advanced further in a major than he has ever before, and that line score was really surprising to me today as well, Barry. 7-5, 7-6, 6-4. Obviously, Djokovic serving for the match in the third set was broken. We've seen that a few times now from Novak in the last couple months, surprisingly. But, credit to Milos. And again, we talked on the last show about his work with Ivan Lubicic, really doing just some nice things, giving Milos some confidence. And I know that Milos Raonic is looking very forward to the grass court season. That said, he's only... he's had three losses in a row in the second round at Wimbledon. But, Want to get your take on Novak this tournament, as well as taking a look at the semifinal of Novak Djokovic and Ernest Gulbis as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Raonic, he's not, obviously he gets a lot of his reputation for his serve, precedes him everywhere he goes, but he's got extremely good ground game. His backhand's gotten so much better. He's got a big forehand for a while. His backhand's gotten better. He's moving better. And he's mentally tough. He doesn't go away. He's right there. He wins close matches. He's going to be a threat. I think his movement gets him in trouble on the faster surfaces. That's why he struggled at Wimbledon. The U.S. Open hasn't been his favorite place either. But that can all change in time. But as we go forward, Djokovic is, what more can you say? He's just been an incredibly, just superlatively consistent performer. He's been the best player in the world over the last 3 or 4 years, if you look at the cumulative record. And here he is again. He's in another semi. I think he's got 20 quarters in a row, and he's just a force out there. And he doesn't get hurt. He doesn't seem to waver. He may lose a serve here and there, serving for a match. But boy, he's just, you just can't say enough positive things about him.
Yeah, indeed. And tomorrow we got a couple more matches, quarterfinal matches, a rematch of last year's Roland Garros final. We've got Rafael Nadal taking on countryman David Ferrer. Nadal has had a very kind draw at Roland Garros this year, and that he probably grateful for that, given again not necessarily the results that he's accustomed to or anybody from him leading into Roland Garros this year, but. Here's Ferrer again. I mean, he's in his early 30s. He's an absolute workhorse out there. Unfortunately for him, he draws someone like Rafa in the quarterfinal, not necessarily deeper. Obviously, Rafael Nadal is routining the players he's played. No real threats so far. Ferrer will probably provide the first test. That said, we all remember last year's final where it was an absolute drubbing, Nadal over Ferrer. Want to get your thoughts on Rafa so far, as well as Ferrer coming into this.
Yeah, lots of good points there. Nadal, he hit a dream draw here. I mean, to get to the quarters, without really being pushed at all. I think this is going to be a little bit more interesting than people are anticipating. First of all, I think Ferrer's beaten him 3 of the last 4 times they played. He took him out of Monte Carlo. He's not afraid. He's beaten him 8 times in his career. He's beaten him twice in majors, so he can beat him 3 out of 5. He beat him in Australia and at the U.S. Open. And I think with a guy like Ferrer, who's an interesting case in the sense, I think, when you go up against a guy like Nadal, are you going to focus on the fact that he's beaten you 20-odd times or the fact that you've beaten him 8 times? And I think a guy like Ferrer, a little guy like that, has always been such a believer in himself. I don't think he's really terribly worried about who he's playing. I think he's just a guy who knows he's got himself in the greatest shape he can get in, and he's a fighter, and he's going to go out there and do battle. So I think his belief in himself supersedes his fear of Nadal, and I think he's going to go out there and give him all he can handle here. I don't know if he can take him out. Obviously this is Rafa's house, but I just think I think we're going 4, possibly 5 sets here. I just got a feeling that he's going to give him all he can handle here.
I'd love to see it. We know David Ferrer has game, can bring it. Would love to see him test Rafa. Hopefully that'll go the distance. Not so sure, but if anybody can take him that far, that would be Ferrer. I agree, despite the result that we saw last year. And the other quarter, Gil Monfils and Andy Murray, ironically, Barry, both have already been to the Roland Garros semis previously in their career. Monfils, what can you say? I mean, he's the acrobat out there, and a little bit of a surprise, perhaps, that Andy Murray's there, given his his still coming back from injury. He's a good clay court player. That said, I don't think he has any titles on clay, but one of these guys, Gil Monfils or Andy Murray, will get to their second Roland Garros semifinal. All credit to Murray for sticking it out in a 12-10 fifth set match, continued over 2 days against Kohlschreiber. I believe he saved a break point, which would have allowed Kohlschreiber to serve for it. So, this one is tough to pick. Obviously, the French crowd is going to be going ballistic for Gael Monfils. Murray said, it really doesn't matter that much. And the one thing I want to point out, Murray playing in, playing in somewhat of a hostile environment when Fognini absolutely drummed him in Davis Cup in straight sets in Italy. So that was a while ago. Obviously, Murray is still alive in the tournament. Fognini is not. But your take on Gael Monfils and Andy Murray?
You pretty much laid it out there. This should be a fascinating match. Impossible to not give Monfils a severe home court advantage here, and I do think this will have a significant effect on Murray. His tendency to get down on himself and get antsy. The crowd has been really, really, really behind Monfils. So all things being equal, that's going to be a huge influence in this match. I just think it's, watching Murray in the Cole Schreiber match, he's kind of gone, he's just regressed back into that, he's going to be this 6'3" physical specimen, yet a retriever. He just doesn't have the stick on his shots. Cole Schreiber was pushing him around, from the first game to the last game. He just was dictating the points. Against an athlete like Monfils, I just don't know if Murray can play that defensively. The weather's going to be a little sketchy. It should be a little wet out there, so the court will be playing slower. I just don't see how Murray's going to be able to run it. He's just not going to be able to retrieve enough balls. I think Monfils will have a little more pop. He's got the first serve going. He's going to have the crowd going. He's a little more of a shot maker. And I just think over the course of that match, he's going to grind him down. And I just don't know how I don't know if Murray's got quite enough pop in his game to go through him right now. And I don't think he can defensively just outfox him that way.
Yeah, that said, though, a couple matches ago, Gael Monfils and Fognini, Monfils looked like it was almost ripcord in that when he lost the fourth set, love 6. And so you really never know what, a little strain can throw Gael Monfils off in a bad way. That said, you mentioned one thing, and I agree. The crowd, I think, will absolutely pull him through, will lift him, will refuse to let him maybe go away for a little while. We haven't seen a French champion since, I think, '83 with Noah. So Paris has been waiting a long time. Gael Monfils could very well get one step closer to getting that done. Obviously, he's got some other tough customers in his side of the draw there, but first things first against Andy Murray. I am actually going to go with Andy Murray in 4 sets. I'm thinking Monfils is going to go away for a little while, and I'm not really sure what or why or how, but I think that Murray's going to be the steadier player, and that's going to prove to be enough. Your pick.
I'm going to go Murray in 5. Though I agree with you on that level. I think the crowd can help Monfils up to a point, and then I think historically he's really, really laid a couple of eggs on center court. I think one was against Federer a few years back, where he just comes out there and it's almost he's too hyped up, and he's just not able to walk into that kind of the crowd favorite role there and use it to his advantage. So I'm going to take Murray in 5 grueling sets. I think it's going to be a fantastic back and forth match, shot making, athleticism, up the yin yang drama. I just think it'll be the match of the quarters, the best one by far, and I think I'm going to take Murray in 5.
That's great. So we're probably most likely looking at then, if it holds true to our picks, Barry, is a Rafael Nadal and Andy Murray semi. And right before we go to break, we have a caller joining us from the 480 area code, which is where I am as well, here in the East Valley in Arizona. I'm going to bring the caller on the line. And welcome to Passing Shots. You're on with Pete Ziebron and Barry Buss. Good evening. No, well, we couldn't hear the caller so well. It looked like it was on a speakerphone. Barry, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to go to our Hall of Fame and Hall of Shame, some of the sterling performances that we've seen so far at Roland Garros, as well as some of the disappointments with respect to the players. We're going to lead off with Barry giving us his Hall of Fame picks. I'll go with mine, and then we'll come back with the Hall of Shame, and we'll come back right after this.
Hey, Thirst, can I try out a few Coke Summer sound effects on you? Cool. You okay with this? And this? what about this? Gotcha there, Thirst. That wasn't sound effects. That was a Coke. I'm no longer thirsty. You're so out of here. Coca-Cola. Open happiness.
What is this bill for $562? Let me call these people.
Thanks for calling Big Tobacco. How can I be of assistance?
Hi, I was going through my mail and saw this bill saying I owe $562 for smoking-related expenses.
That's correct, ma'am.
Yeah, what's the deal with this bill?
You see, smokers miss more work and retire earlier, which costs Nevadans $903 million in lost productivity per year. Also, smokers get sick with diseases like lung cancer and emphysema, costing another $565 million in medical expenses. So, when you add it up and divide by a total number of Nevadans, it comes out to $562 per Nevada household.
Okay, but I don't smoke.
Whether you smoke or not, every Nevadan pays the bill.
You know what? I'm not paying this bill.
Actually, you already did. And you'll be making the same payment again next year. Well, thank you for your call.
Hello?
Is smoking worth it? Learn more at smokefreevegas.com. That's smokefreevegas.com. Or for free help quitting smoking, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Made possible by funding from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Little Caesars, home of the $5 hot and ready pepperoni pizza, now has a deep, deep dish pizza with 8 crispy caramelized corner slices and even more cheese and pepperoni. So head on down and grab a large for just $8 and tell them Alan Varner sent you. They won't know who that is, but as a voice actor, I'm always trying to get my name out there. Check me out at alandoesvoices.com. That's ALAN doesvoices.com. But first, get the new Deep Deep Dish Pizza. It's hot and ready every day from 4 to 8 p.m. for just $8, only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
At participating locations plus tax.
Hi, this is Jeff Salzenstein.
Hi, this is Kendall Hart.
Hi, this is Dick Gould.
Hi, this is John Embry, and you are listening to the Pro 10 Radio Network.
And welcome back to the final segment of Passing Shots. Pete Ziebron with Barry Buss. We've been talking about the women's and men's action at Roland Garros 2014, taking a look at the draws and all the action so far. And we've come to the segment of the show, Barry, where we have our Hall of Fame and Hall of Fame. We're going to start with the Hall of Fame, where I'd like to hear what you've had to see and experience at Roland Garros this year with respect to some of the outstanding performances, maybe some of the players that are unheralded who have done some great things, or even the stars that we all know and love who have performed very well so far to date.
Yeah, I think you just said it. I think it's been a really nice blend of new faces and kind of the old guard. And is this the year where we see the changing of the guard? Or is it one more, they're going to hang in there for one more, calendar year here and hold their rankings? But it's, it's got the intrigue. It's not all the same faces. The thing actually that really been standing out to me more than anything else is Paris. Paris has just been the winner. I mean, the weather's been fantastic. It just seems, the crowds have been great. It's just everybody, the players everyone seems very happy. Not a single, hardly a complaint to be heard there. It just seems like such a phenomenal place. And then obviously, coming into the championship weekend, it's all set up with all the marquee names. So I think Paris is a big winner. And I just think tennis as a whole is a big winner. It's been a really excellent event so far with very, very few, dramatic downturns. And so I think it's just been a wonderful event so far.
Yeah, I want to give some singular shout-outs to some of the players. Guillermo Garcia Lopez, this is his 39th major, his 38th consecutive major, and he reached the fourth round for the very first time. So all credit to him. Number 41 in the world, obviously took out Stan Wawrinka in the first round. And, he's, unfortunately for him, is just another Spanish player who's pretty darn good. If he plays for any other flag in the world, everybody knows who he is, especially in his home country. Unfortunately for him, he's behind some pretty big names in Spain. But congratulations, Guillermo Garcia Lopez, your best result ever at a major. And a few other shout-outs, Ernestas Gulbis, as we mentioned, solid wins over Roger Federer, Tomas Berdych, and as you mentioned, Barry, 2 more to go. Wow, if he were somehow able to defeat Djokovic and then probably Nadal in the final, as you said, I don't know if there's a player out there who's capable of doing that, and yet he's sort of halfway home. Right, ever. Yeah. Currently and probably never ever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and Andy Murray mentioned this, still without a coach, a nice 12-10 win over Kohlschreiber over 2 days. Probably still not 100% yet with his back. Obviously, almost there if he's playing this well, and we both picked him to take out Monfils. But all credit to Murray. I'm not sure people had him going this far, and he still obviously is alive and well and could go further. Couple more. Milos Raonic, first quarterfinal ever in his career. Again, a very strong effort today against Novak Djokovic, and we'll see what he can do on the grass. And then Garbina Muguruza, obviously beating Serena Williams 2-2, and I liked her effort today in the first round against Jeannie Bouchard. And then finally, Barry, Anna Schmiedlova of Slovakia down a set against Venus Williams in the second round, comes back, turns the tables against Venus. In her post-match interview on court, they were asking, okay, you beat Venus, can you beat Serena? And she, I still can't believe I beat Venus. Obviously, she didn't have a chance to play Serena Williams. But as you mentioned, a lot of new faces. Some of the big names, Serena, Lena, Radwanska going out, the men's side, Wawrinka, Fed opens the door for Gulbis, but we're seeing somewhat changes of the guards, but names that we'd see in the first week are now making deep inroads into the second week. Just your any other players in particular that maybe have made an impression on you this week?
Monfils probably more than anything else. He's had a really difficult couple years. He was a former semifinalist and the top. He ranked the highest ranking was 4 or 5 in the world, and he's pretty much left for kind of a sideshow, break dancing, kind of our comedy relief on tour. There, he's taken this very relaxed, kind of laissez-faire attitude to his workplace, and maybe it's working for him. Where he's not the expectations of kind of being the savior for France and French tennis. Maybe he's just relaxing and he's enjoying it. Seems to be enjoying himself out there, and he's put on a great tournament. It's a great run for him, and he's not done yet. And what could be more exciting for him than a quarterfinal matchup on center court at home like that? So he's been impressive. And you can't say enough about Spanish tennis. They keep doing it. 2 more girls here in the quarterfinals. They're just impressive. They just keep churning them out. Garcia Lopez, like you're talking about. They got it going, and so those things stood out for me.
Yeah, nice. Well, good points there. And now time to talk about the Hall of Shame. We'll discuss these in a little bit more detail, but this unfortunately, fortunately, he's a fun, flashy player who can play very, very well. Has had some great success early in the year. 3 finals, won one of the tournaments this year. Obviously, a Davis Cup hero. They're alive and well in Davis Cup. That is Italy. Talking about Fabio Fognini, and the first 3 sets against Gael Monfils over the weekend were fantastic, and then we have an 0-6 set and then a 6-2 set, but Fognini called for a point penalty, and if there's anybody who can pick who that would probably be who would earn one of those at Roland Garros, it would probably be him for most people, but he won that set, Barry, 6-love against Monfils in the 4th, and then seeing the scoreline of Monfils, who looked down for the count, really, for him to come back and win that 6-2 against Fognini, I don't know. My opinion, it was there for the taking for Fognini. I don't want this to sound worse than it is, but I think he just disposed of a prime opportunity to continue. Obviously, he's a very, very good clay court player. Was booed off the court in Monte Carlo when he was up a set in a break and lost the 3rd set, I believe, 6-love to Tsonga, and just since that time has not really had a good run on the tennis court. That said, he did advance pretty far. He did accomplish some things, but I fully expected Fabio Fognini to win that match against Monfils. And what are your overall thoughts on Fabio Fognini?
Tough one, Again, another really entertaining player, but a little bit of he's difficult. He's not, he's got some personality out there that keeps your attention, but at the same time, it just seems it's overdone. He just seems to be snapping. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't seem to have the foundation, the emotional foundation to compete with these guys late in the second week of a major. I mean, you compare him to the Djokovics and the Murrays and the Federers. Those guys are all business, and you just can't go out there and do these little, almost childish type of things, just losing his focus and just the behavior and just the kind of quasi tanking. He just doesn't seem, there's just not enough separation in the ability of the top players to get away with that kind of stuff. You're not gonna even get games, And when he's good, he's great. He's flashy. He's a wonderful athlete. He doesn't have a dominant game to run through people. He just can't rely on that. He's going to have to work hard and grind, and the fact of the matter is that he goes up against the bigger hitters like the Djokovics and Nadals. He really does get his tail handed to him, and so he's kind of almost a little bit of a sideshow, but he's an extraordinarily good one, and he's had some great results. So you can look at it a lot of different ways. I mean, I'm actually surprised he's doing as well as he is, considering his makeup. Yet at the same time, you see all this promise there, and it just he doesn't quite deliver on it.
Yeah, well, sounds like we've been talking about Gulbis for the last several years, that description of Fabio Fognini. And
quite a few guys we could put in that category.
Yeah, Gulbis obviously has some good coaching and mentorship right now, and is determined to put in the work. But like you said, there's a few people that would fit in that camp. Seems like Gulbis has checked out of that camp and is in the more serious mode. Congratulations to him. But would be interesting to see how far Fognini could take it. But I do agree with you, against the bigger hitters of the game, the more solid pillars of men's tennis, he's going to lose, and the scoreboard's not going to look too good. Another one of those guys, Barry, who sort of is in that camp, if you will. I've seen him pull some antics on the court in Cincinnati over the years, but he's had himself a fine start to 2014. Alexander Dolgopolov, loses only 4 games in the first 2 sets against Marcel Granollers, obviously a 2-sets-to-love lead. Then the switch is flipped, and he only wins 5 games in the last 3 sets. That's a real puzzler. That's a real head-scratcher. I looked at the stats in that match, and they weren't, 17 or 22 or 25-minute sets. Those were, 38-minute, 43-minute sets that he lost the last 3, but only managed 5 games. And I was expecting quite a bit more from Dolgopolov, given his form earlier in the year. And where do you think he could go further this year?
He's a complex one. He's one of those guys he's a little bit of a risk taker. It's a low percentage shot for almost all of us except him. So he seems to think he can pull these shots off. And obviously, when he's a human highlight film when he's making them, and he's very, very flashy, and he can get on these runs where he can basically take the racket out of very good tennis players' hands. Beating Nadal and Indian Wells this year, and he looked fantastic. So he obviously has the capabilities to play with the elite players. Yet at the same time, what I notice in these guys, and this is really what I think separates the Nadals and Djokovic from the field, is the range of play. I mean, you just don't see these highs and lows amongst the elite players that you get from these Dolgopolovs and even Gulbis and Dimitrov and the second tier, Wawrinka even put in that class right now. Those guys, they just have a little too much range. And if you're on the low end of your range and you're playing a peer of yours who's not, you're not going to come out ahead. And you're not even going to get a lot of games. I mean, you got to really execute against these guys. A guy like Dolgopolov, who just doesn't, he's got too much risk in his game. He gets off track. He can start spraying them everywhere, and the games can go fast. He's gonna knock off some guys. He's gonna be a danger on the faster surfaces. He hits the ball quite hard and early, but I think when it comes to late second weeks of majors, I just don't anticipate him being there.
Yeah, I very, very entertaining player to watch. I at Indian Wells a few years ago, I saw him play Del Potro. He hit 3 let serves in a row, and after the third one, he just bent over and just started laughing. It's sort of like, oh, okay. But
he's having fun out there. It's nice,
Yeah. probably the best description I've ever heard. Jim Courier in the TV booth called him a jack-in-the-box. And that's well put.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely.
I've got a couple more points on the Hall of Shame, Barry, but I want to get your thoughts on maybe who hasn't lived up to your expectations, maybe crashed and burned a little earlier than normal. Obviously, some big names exited, but anything that maybe you thought somebody that didn't perform at their best or was a big surprise.
Well, I think I was looking more on a more macro scale. I think Sweden is just been a huge disappointment. It's just getting a little bit of press now, but boy, oh boy, what a incredible fall from grace. I mean, just this one series of top 10 players and champions, and they just seem to have an assembly line of talent coming out there. And after Soderling, it is absolutely fallen off. And I just don't know. They're pulling. You think we have problems in America? Well, they don't have a single guy in the top 300, and so how does that happen? I don't know. I don't know how that happens there. So that was kind of one thing that stood out for me is just what happens to national tennis federations like that, when they fall off the tracks like that, and will they come back? So that was one for me. The other one is the fashion. I have to be honest with you, the clothing I think this year has just been horrifying. I don't get what they're doing. It's almost if you think back years back, guys would have outfits that they would wear for seasons, at least a couple months, and they just keep trying to turn these guys over into new outfits every tournament, and they're just coming up short. I mean, and not to get into too much of a fashionista, but I just don't get what this year's attempt at apparel was. It just didn't seem to have a theme, and none of it seems to really be working for me on the court.
And all the clothing manufacturers are guilty as charged, by the way.
Yeah, Uniqlo. I mean, I don't get the Djokovic stuff. They're paying him, tens of millions of dollars, and they can't come up with a shirt that's more than just one block color. I mean, Maria's dress looks like a Pepto-Bismol chewable or something. I don't know what the thing is, and Serena's thing was, I don't know what that was. I'm kind of glad she lost early this year, so I didn't have to look at that for some messages.
Yeah, you mentioned Sweden, and I'd have to throw Australia in there as well. But the one big bummer for Sweden was the fact that Joachim Johansson had those injuries because boy, he had a big game, and he played in Stockholm as a one-off and won a couple of matches actually. But wow, what could have been for him and for Sweden? I think he made the U.S. Open. It's either a semi or a quarter. I beat Andy Roddick up pretty badly one year. Yeah, we had the semis, right. And too bad because he was very fun and entertaining. Obviously a slender guy with a big game, and unfortunately the tennis world and especially Sweden is not able to enjoy him on the tennis court. But and a couple other Hall of Shames. Good points on the nationalism aspect as well as the fashion. But for me, the current injury timeout rule, both Dmitry Tursunov and Ernestus Gulbis left the court for, quote, injury timeout. They're both playing Roger Federer. I'm not really sure what had to happen to either guy where they had to leave the court. And obviously that would be somewhat of a serious injury to actually leave the court, and yet both players requested it, I suppose, and were granted that. Obviously, Gulbis left when he was down 2-5 in the fourth set. Federer obviously, was able to pull that set out, had some trouble after Gulbis returned, and then I think that affected Roger. But I'm not really sure how and why this is still allowed. Obviously, if a player is ailing, that needs to be addressed, but leaving the court, I would think they're almost, not able to walk, but yet we're seeing that more and more. Your thoughts there?
Oh, yeah. No, well, this goes back to the Azarenka match against Sloane Stephens in Australia a couple of years ago where, supposedly she dislocated her rib. I mean, come on. And, these guys are savvy. They know how to get off the court and where they can get themselves calmed down and either break the momentum. But, if you have a lower body, if you're claiming a lower body injury like that where you actually need to maybe take your shorts off and have some privacy, that's the play. That's what these guys are doing. I mean, Gulbis was talking about a low back thing, right, that could not be treated with his shorts on in front of 15,000 people, and so that's the play. And as long as the rules, they're within the rules, but I don't know if they're within the spirit of the game when they do that. And
right,
and I mean, in all sincerity, I mean, Azarenka may have won that match with Sloane Stevenson, but she lost a tremendous amount of faith amongst the broadcasters and their peers and the fans for that performance. And I don't know if she'll ever get that back. I mean, she's really going to be looked upon as a cheater. And Gulbis played it touch and go there. You don't do that to Federer. You got to respect the game and respect your opponent. And at that time, you better be really, really hurt to pull something at that. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a complicated thing. At least they clamped down on the bathroom breaks some years ago. Every time you'd be serving for a match, somebody running off the court to go to the bathroom. So they're getting better at that. But it's difficult. You have to allow for some of that. And you're in a stadium situation. It's just not that simple. You got to run down the corridors. You got to get to the locker rooms. It's not that simple. So. I don't know how they could possibly make it any simpler or any more efficient for the people who are out there having to wait, which is a real detriment.
Yeah, I agree that your point on Azarenka, that was a very expensive victory for her in terms of the broadcasters, the fans, and probably most importantly the locker room. Yeah, big time there. Yeah. And my last Hall of Shame is someone whose game isn't all that great on clay, but yet I feel, Barry, she threw away a very good opportunity to make at least a deeper run. Aga Radwanska lost a third-round match to Ayla Tomiljanovic of Croatia. I'm not really sure how and why that happened. That was 4-4. I would have thought Aga is more of a seasoned pro to be able to get the job done there, but that didn't happen. And excuse me, I just want to get your thoughts on Aga. Obviously, was a set away from beating Serena Williams at Wimbledon a few years ago, and at that point she would have gotten the number one ranking in the world, and obviously so far away now. But I want to get your take on Aga Radwanska today, and does she have a major in her?
Boy, that's a good question. She reminds me so much of Wozniacki in the sense that she does not have the dominant game to go out there and basically run through players and dominate them. But yet at the same time, she's got an incredibly artistic game and a very unique game. Yet at the same time, she doesn't have the power. And there's an awful lot of firepower out there that if she's not dead on, getting her spots and mixing things up, these other kids can hit it and they can take the racket out of her hand. And all of a sudden she has a little bit of doubt in her game, and she starts losing matches like this. And this has been going on for a little bit now. She's had a few of these letdowns. That was a terrible third set against Sivakova in Australia. She had an awful loss at Wimbledon last year with Sticky, I believe, right in the semis. And just some very, very winnable matches where if you were assuming she was going to be someone challenging for Grand Slams, these are matches you've got to win, and she's not only winning them, she's not stepping up and performing well in those situations. Yet, hey, she's still top 5 or 6, and she's right there in the equation. She'll be there at one or two of these events down the road. Will she win one? I'm not sure. It would take a lot of fortunate breaks for her. But I just think she's a wonderful athlete. I just don't think she's a champion, so to speak. If you can really break it down on that fine of a line.
Yeah, well put, absolutely. And coming up on the end of the show, Barry, but I want to ask you, what are you looking forward to with respect to where we are now to Championship Sunday for the men before Roland Garros wraps up? What would you like to see between now and then, or anything that you anticipate happening?
For me personally, this is where I think the French is unique in the sense it just gets really physical. I want to see some really long 4 and 5 set 4 or 5 hour matches where it kind of gets beyond the tennis realm, where it's just more about the guts and the conditioning and just that will to win. And you get those matches here where these guys are just so spent, you have to somehow able to continue to grind and grind and grind. You really appreciate the physicality and athleticism that and the hard work these guys have done. So that's it for me. I mean, I really love to see the drama. I'm not overly partial to any of the players. I love the competition aspect of it, and I like the opportunities, and I love the emotion of it, and I want to see some really, really close matches where people overcome themselves and their and their demons, and then come out ahead and celebrate. I mean, I love the celebrations when these guys win. It's great.
Yeah, one thing that I'd like to see is I agree. I'd love to see a men's final between Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, and what you had mentioned, slugging it out, long rallies. I'd like to see 5 sets. I'd like to see maybe 9-7, 12-10 in the final, and I really would like to see Novak Djokovic be able to complete the career Grand Slam. He deserves it. He has come very close to accomplishing that. It's had some deaths in his family and his camp, and obviously the unfortunate luck in touching the net last year. He's very, very deserving. It's almost split between everybody who might win that, and I'd like to see him get the job done there. Obviously, he also, the only Masters 1000 he doesn't have, Barry, is Cincinnati, and he's been to that final 4 times. So Novak Djokovic could accomplish some nice things here in the next few months. But first things first, obviously, he's got a couple more matches before he's able to get the job done there, if at all possible this year at Roland Garros. But that's my biggest takeaway on what I'm looking for and forward. And the absolute physicality of the matches in Paris. Clay, you have to keep going and going. Ferrer might be Exhibit A with respect to running everything down, just the workhorse out there. So looking forward to the matches tomorrow. And any changes of prediction or any last thoughts before we sign off tonight, Barry?
Oh, boy. I'm going to stick with, betting against, and I said it last week, betting against Nadal is like betting against the Globetrotters. So it's just, until somebody, it's almost disrespectful to not pick him until somebody can actually knock him off. It's been his tournament. He is obviously the favorite. It's everything we'd ever want. I mean, it's a heavyweight fight. We want that Nadal-Djokovic final. Obviously, a little bit of tennis to be played before that, but all indications are we will get that again, and that's tennis can do these days.
Yeah, and are you still sticking with Sharapova over Halep in the women's final?
I'm going to stick with Maria, and I'm going to stick with Nadal still, just barely though.
Yeah, I'm really as well. Sharapova. Well, Sharapova almost made the exit today, but Sharapova or Halep, I agree with you on that, Barry. I'm again sticking with my figure of 50.5% Novak Djokovic, 49.5% Rafael Nadal. We made those picks last time. Obviously, all players are still alive and well in the draw at Roland Garros. And for Barry Buss, this is Pete Ziebron signing off. Another show of Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Good night, and God bless.
That's all, folks.